dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right.
There's all these, or Mutiny in Space. There's this guy who basically looks like a really bad bodybuilder. His name's, who knows, but the characters call him, Chad, Slabfist, Brock, Hard Cheese, Brock Hardbody. So yeah, Bront Hardbody is a really good name for a fighter. Anyone can steal Bront Hardbody if you want to have it. Yeah,
an actual name from the classic Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode. The movie I'm forgetting, but I only remember the character's name is Zap Rousdower.
Zap Rousdower.
Zap Rousdower. Zap Rousdower is definitely somebody that you should incorporate in all of your games.
Zap Rousdower would be a hard drinking cleric of Thor or something, or of lightning.
What can't you do with Zap Rousdower?
Wonder if there's a monster on the sun.
All right, so yeah, as you might be able to tell, your intrepid DMs are in the same place, sitting across from each other, kitchen table style, discussing. Right now we're discussing the fact that we're
kitchen table debate 2018.
No new taxes on what's the primary tax issue of the Forgotten Realms. No new taxes on spell components.
Yeah, I would imagine it'd be spell components.
Yeah.
Or no new taxes on Dro. There's too many Dro. There's a lot of Dro.
Build the underground wall.
Yeah.
Build the gate to the. I don't know. How would you? I don't know. Plug the Underdark. I like that.
There's a big blimp over Waterdeep that says, a new life awaits you in the Underdark.
The Underdark.
In the off-world Underdark. Just head on down there. And honestly, it's pretty good. Talking about a green economy, right? They take no energy from the sun.
That's
yet
right.
They seem to have an unlimited supply of fungus and other things.
Yep.
Not really sure how that
it's
works.
Aside from
best not to think about it.
Aside from the demon web pits, it seems like a sustainable ecosystem somehow. Not super clear how, but there's things that grow down there, and they don't take any foodstuffs from the surface unless they want to.
I'm guessing maybe it works like the bottom of the ocean, just like shit sort of leaks down into the Underdark.
The Dragon Age games explored this to some degree, and I don't remember exactly how it worked, but they had the dwarves lived all underground, and they had nergs, the little rabbit livestock, and then I think they also grew lichen again.
Yeah, you could do that in Dwarf Fortress, you have a fungus
ambient
farm.
light. Anyway, so if you know how to build a sustainable underground ecosystem, let us know, because we'll probably all be living in caves someday. So it would be useful for us to know. Please, underground cavern ecologists, write in. Tell us what you know about how to survive without light.
Yeah, actually, your best dungeon master would be what do you call a fungus, a mycologist or something?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
for sure.
I would love to play a game run by a mycologist.
Absolutely.
One of my games I've played in is run by a civil engineer, which is either the best or the worst type of dungeon master, because then every thing makes sense. Everything, if you can find the load-bearing wall, then yeah, you can bring a place down. There's always proper drainage in all of his dungeons.
Sure.
It's very important.
It's important.
Yeah.
I bet he's great at Dwarf Fortress, speaking of.
I'm sure he is.
Yeah, so this is Dungeon Master of None, and I'm Rob.
And I'm Matt.
And we're going to be talking about a lot of things today. I think the core of this episode is Matt and I have both had an
New releases.
Have had an opportunity to spend some time with both a Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage and the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, which we will be...
Is it Ravnica or Ravnica?
Ooh, this is a great...
It's Ravnica.
It's Ravnica. I'm sorry. I'm obviously not a...
Ravnica. Well,
committed Magic the Gathering player. So sorry, this will be the last time I say Ravnica instead of Ravnica. But yeah, Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica.
A lot happening in Dungeons and Dragons, though. that I want to mention. So, Rob, I'm going to make you, after we're done watching this, watch part of the Twitch stream. So this weekend, Twitch, the giant streaming service owned by Amazon, debuted RPG Sports, like an RPG sports channel, which has trying to do sort of a competitive D&D stream, right? We all know D&D streaming is incredibly popular on Twitch. When I looked at it, this had like 200 views. So this was not incredibly popular. But it was competitive.
I have been very busy. I have not had any time to take a look at this. Obviously, it is not something that I'm particularly enthusiastic about. As Matt and I have discussed previously, we're not opposed to the idea of competitive D&D. And in fact, we actually have some ideas for it that we like. But from what I gather, this was not done particularly well. Matt, do you want to sort of describe what you saw in the brief time?
Sure.
I think
I could save this for next episode.
Well, let's talk about it briefly, okay, and then I'd like to watch it, and we'll discuss it in further detail. So, but let's just do like a quick rundown of this so that people know what's up.
They had some hype folks, which was cool. I like the idea of D&D hype MCs. The Dungeon Master was Grant Ellis, who's a great Dungeon Master. He's done a lot of other things and published some stuff that's not so bad. But they had 2 teams of 4, and they had like a pick ban phase, which is like they're trying to make it like a MOBA game.
Like so it was like pick ban a class or like a race?
No, there were pre-made characters.
Oh, I see.
And they looked at all the characters, and then they picked and banned their way to build their party. I don't know what So I guess the benefit of this is it looked more like a MOBA. The downside is no one knew what class or character they were going to get before they played. So people were like, I don't actually know what this does.
Okay. Actually, so now that you're mentioning this, I actually have a lot of thoughts on this. So we're
going to get into it. Rob and I are going to drink a beer.
We're going to table this and watch this, and we'll record an episode maybe just on this particular thing. But yeah, so that happened. Stay tuned for what is undoubtedly going to sweep the Twitch world and overtake everything.
Move out of the way.
Yeah, out of the way, Fortnite. Here comes...
Watch out, Dr. Disrespect.
Here comes competitive Dungeons and Dragons.
Here comes Wizard Rudeness or something. Archmaid Rude Boy.
Yeah.
He will throw you under the water, Dr. Disrespect. Yeah, so no, some other things did happen. 7th Sea or John Wick presents. They make 7th Sea, the kind of swashbuckling game of that's just a lot of fun. Basically fired all their employees.
I saw
so that's
that.
Pretty sad.
My cynical take on this is that I'm surprised we don't hear more of this. Honestly, I know that it's never been good for any gaming or tabletop company, but the stories of like studios shuttering or firing all their employees are relatively rare, which I guess maybe reflects the size of the industry. But it's very unfortunate, and I hope they find work somewhere else. But
they had a very successful Kickstarter. I just wonder if they found a way to bring in money that wasn't via their Kickstarters. Speaking of Kickstarters, Monty Cook Games launched or is wrapping up a reprint Kickstarter for the Invisible Sun.
For the Invisible Sun. So it wraps.
Did you end up?
So I've got 2 more days to think about it. It's a $250 buy-in to actually get the set, but it comes with like a bunch of books and minis and a tie-in app and like
a giant black hand.
Yeah, it looks definitely worth the cost. However, $250 is a lot. And again, also, this is something that will not be delivered until summer of next year. So,
you gotta really want that extra marshmallow.
Yeah,
kindergartner.
You really want to. Yeah,
delayed gratification's hell of a.
I trust Monty Cook. So this is definitely not an area where they've already like done 1 round of this. And again, this is Invisible Sun. You can look at it. Check it out. I think we might be able to get this episode up before it closes on the 15th.
Yeah.
But take a look and see if you want to spend $250 on it. As you can tell by my chuckling. Chances are pretty low, as excited as I am, that I'm going to shell out. Wait that long for my marshmallow, I guess.
I think
I'll get a lot of enjoyment out of $250 between now and the next summer. And also,
well,
we might all be dead by then.
We might all be dead, consumed in fire. But I mean, if you don't get a game out of it, you basically have to. You're like, people, you must play this with me because I spent $250.
Definitely, if this is something that you have to you're really like gambling that your friends are going to want to play, and also possibly, hopefully, want to play a lot to get your money's worth. I will say that I guarantee you that Monty Cook and his team will deliver on this. This is not a
right. I mean, they already made it.
Yeah, this is not a Kickstarter that I think is going to fail. It's just. Yeah, man, it is. I mean, to their credit, they're being very realistic about the time it's going to take them to deliver on this particular property, which is a year or the better part of a year. So, check it out. Monty Cook, Invisible Sun, Kickstarter.
I think I ended up, instead of spending $250, spent like $20 to get Spire. I think it's called a Strata or something like that. It's an urban fantasy game. Looked pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
Had some cool... Mike Maglianola style art. So another urban fantasy art.
You can buy into lower levels of Invisible Sun, but
you don't get it.
You don't get anything.
You don't get the game.
You get some like periphery, but you don't actually get the game.
You need the game.
You need the game, and for that, your only option is 250 smackaroos or more. If you want the deluxe edition or whatever. Do
you want Monty Cook to DM you a couple times?
That's right.
You can pay a lot more for that.
That's right.
So yeah, we've got two big things. Two big things.
That's our general news.
General news. Take a quick break and talk about our two big things.
Okay.
Black hole sun, won't you come? Wash away the rain. Black hole sun, won't you come? Won't you come? Won't you come?
All right, tell me about. So there are two new releases, Rob, from Wizards of the Coast. Two cool things: one an adventure, one a campaign guide. You read the adventure, I read the campaign guide. We're gonna tell each other about it.
We both spent a little time with both,
yes.
but we divided and conquered because too much hashtag content this weekend, and so I focused on Waterdeep, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, which is sort of, I think when they announced it, it was pitched as a follow-up to Waterdeep Dragon Heist, but it's not really. It is very well situated so that you can, after Dragon Heist, jump right into it, but it's basically a mega dungeon.
Right. Too long, didn't read. It's a Waterdeep mega dungeon.
Exactly. It's a Waterdeep. Yeah. In brief, Matt Sapp's correct. It's a Waterdeep mega dungeon set underneath Waterdeep in the Dungeon of the Mad Mage. It takes place beneath the inn, the Yawning Portal, named so because the inn is built over the entrance to this dungeon. Dungeon built by a Hallister Blackcloak, a wizard of some repute. Anyway, you don't need to know all of the details, but
if that name sounds familiar to you and the whole thing sounds familiar, is like many of the things Wizards is releasing, this is based on some older classic content.
Correct.
Undermountain,
right. You will, again, if you're an old school Dungeons and Dragons gamer, you will recognize many of the names and possibly some of the items and locations from this. But yeah, so
if you're worried about spoilers, don't worry. We're going to try not have any, whether you're playing or doing the game, or at least give you some warnings.
Yeah. So the real spoilers are what's in the dungeon. And again, there are, so to be clear, there are 23 levels of this dungeon. I could not go through all of them if I wanted to. I'm not going to go through any of them. You don't need to know. So if you're planning on running this will not spoil you in any way, shape, or form.
Let's just talk then generally about what is a mega dungeon and why you might want to run or play in said type of game.
Have we not done a mega dungeon episode?
No, we haven't.
I'll put that on the list. Yeah. So sorry, team. That's actually something I think we had on very early. But so the idea behind a mega dungeon is, and your real D&D heads will know this, but it's just it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a dungeon where basically your entire campaign takes place. So you will start. Sometimes there's a town outside which you can go out to and go back in, but generally the idea is all of the adventure and action and storytelling of the campaign will take place in a dungeon. And this can be something like Dungeon of the Mad Mage, your classic wizard dungeon. It can be something like like the Underdark. There's the big one for Pathfinder was Rapin Athuk, which was, I think, I don't even remember, some giant temple. And but there's tons of these. They're in my opinion relatively difficult to do well, but definitely hew towards a certain type of player and party.
Right. They definitely hew towards the type of dungeon that Gygax built. In that
Yes.
You come to a dungeon, and sometimes on a level there's, several warring groups, and you have to negotiate a peace between them or ally with one side. You definitely want to build dungeons if you want to create an adventure in the Megadungeon style, where your dungeons have ecologies, right?
Right.
Why are these things here?
Right.
Because you've got to do this a lot, and your players are always in it, so they're going to want to be able to figure these things out.
Yeah. And some of these dungeons do a better job of presenting a theory for why the dungeon exists, and this is one of the great things about Dungeon of the Mad Mage is it gives you a backstory, which your players may never need to know, for all of the monsters and monster groups and organizations and people you'll run into on each of the dungeon levels. And this is important. You need to understand how a dungeon exists. But yeah, it's a key part of creating a realistic and functional mega dungeon. They need to have places for your players to rest and possibly places for them to shop
and also places that are mixed up, right? Just because we're talking about a mega dungeon doesn't mean that every part of a giant dungeon that your players are going to spend their whole campaign in needs to be, carved stone walls with doors and things like that. The most fun mega dungeons I've run have always done, kind of different things, right? You enter in and this is a lava level tied to the plane of fire. Or over here, it opens up into a giant cavern with an artificial sun hanging in the sky.
Right.
Or, so you really, if you can mix it up, and mega dungeons are a great opportunity to do that. It's just the best way to think about it is a mega dungeon is a campaign where you can basically draw out on graph paper every place your player can go.
Right.
And with other campaigns, you can't do that, right? Because your world is too big.
So if you're a very planning type DM,
Yes.
this is and there's nothing wrong with that. And if you want to give your players options, but also not infinite options, this is a great way to allow them to feel unrestricted, but also make sure that you know what's going to happen. You have all the encounters laid out.
What type of players do you think really enjoy Mega?
I don't want to disparage anybody, but I think it's mostly more mechanically inclined players, more traditionally minded players, players who come from the older tabletop role playing traditions,
or just gravitate toward that. Players also who really like investigating and pushing and prodding.
Puzzle players,
people
who like solving either mysteries or finding, or puzzles. This is great for them. There's not always, again, I think the quality of riddles and puzzles in Dungeons and Dragons in general has been wildly overestimated, and most of the time they suck. But most mega dungeons have some of that because they are dungeons. But so here's the thing about a mega dungeon is that it's a lot of work to make one.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to make one, it really, really helps to steal a lot of things. And that's why I actually really like this, not because I'm planning on doing a mega dungeon anytime soon, though maybe. But also it gives you ideas and helps you build a framework, because it is very, very hard to build a mega dungeon from scratch. It's a monumental task of world building and DMing and encounter design. And that's why if you're going to do a mega dungeon, either, I don't know, set aside a few months to work on it, or purchase a pre-made one and then modify as needed.
Well, that is an interesting point that is very obvious that I should have thought about with Dungeon of the Mad Mage, is because there are a lot of levels. You can easily steal bits and pieces of the dungeon if in your non-mega dungeon campaign you want a bit of dungeon crawling.
Exactly. So that's so getting back to Dungeons of the Mad Mage, and if it's not clear, I really like this book. It comes with just enough introduction and background so that you can understand and incorporate this, but it doesn't overwhelm you right away with too much backstory or words plot.
Speaking of plot, this picks up at the level where the previous Wizards of the release left off,
right?
Where Dragon Heist left off. How well does it tie with that? In your opinion?
So to be clear, it's a very tenuous link. There's no real good, and I don't think this is a problem. There are a bunch of really good adventure hooks at the beginning. So if your players are done with Dragon Heist, and they feel a bit lost, there's a bunch of great hooks where they might be approached by somebody or find themselves in trouble or find somebody in trouble that make a very compelling reason for them to go into the dungeon of the Mad Mage. That being said, there's not really any concrete tie between Dragon Heist and Dungeon of the Mad Mage.
Other than they interact with entrance and they take place in Waterdeep.
Other than the shared location. Also, Volothamp Gadarn is prominent in both, So, again, it's not like nothing, but also it's not like they end Dragon Heist and then have an immediate reason to go into the Dungeon of the Mad Mage, which, again, I like. And so when if you're going to pick up this book, I want you to not think of it as having really anything to do with Dragon Heist unless you want it to. What it is good for, in my opinion, and Matt has alluded to this, is it's got, like I said, 23 levels of dungeons, which you can very easily pick and choose from. And I actually kind of recommend that you pick up the D&D Beyond version of this. Both are fine, but I usually recommend against that because I like the physical books better and I think they're easier to read. But
we like books.
But this is good because you're going to be jumping around a lot. It helps to check out things ahead of time. It's good for drawing from the monsters and the NPCs and the magic items, which it does have, and are, again, a pretty good selection. There's some pretty fun monsters and some pretty interesting magical items, including, Matt, a Spelljammer helm.
Oh.
There is a
What type of ship? A hammerhead?
Let me...
Leaf ship?
I'm not going to be able to find it.
Is it a Nautilus? It's probably a Nautilus.
I'm not going to be able to find it in time, the exact stats. But basically what it is, it allows a wizard to put on a helmet and then fly any ship through space and time with limitations.
So it's just the helm.
It's just the helm.
Oh, perfect.
So you put your wizard, your spellcaster puts on the helmet, and then they take their tall ship into the ether or something like that. I don't. The rules are actually like pretty weird and finicky, but it does allow for spelljamming.
Excellent. I will have to pull up my guide to Realm Space, which I believe has some like dwarfs that live in an asteroid field and stuff like that. Yeah. There's a couple other inhabited planets in the Toral
Oh yeah, I bet there are. There are rules for that, or when some of the old books.
So you could go visit them.
You go visit the moons of Tetheril or whatever.
I think it's in one of the Spelljammer, of course, campaign setting books, but it like specifically says that Waterdeep is a place often visited by Spelljammers. They just land in the water and then disguise themselves as regular ships because no one can tell the difference. I haven't read all of it, and so no spoilers, and also barely any. But there are several groups of Githyanki in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and I think perhaps maybe again a tip of the hat to Spelljammer. That's all we're gonna get. But they at least gave us that. It is called a Spelljammer helm in the. Well, that is the name of the thing in the Magic Items Compendium. Again, nice of them to acknowledge that it exists. Very rude of them to not release an actual Spelljammer book. Well, so I think overall we can say that yes, this is a good adventure if you like what we described about Megadungeons. Right? If you want ideas for encounters or dungeons or monsters or hooks or any sort of like level design, if you're a DM that likes to tinker around with any of these things, this is a great pickup. If you're planning on running a game in Forgotten Realms at all, this is a great thing to pick up. You can either like bring your party to Waterdeep, or you can bring parts of this dungeon to them. Like it's again level 5 through 20, so you can really grab stuff sort of at will to plug and drop into your game. I think this is a really rich book if you're doing any sort of gaming in Forgotten Realms or any like standard setting that's going to have recognizable
monsters and hooks. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this book. I was apprehensive going into it, but it's very, very cool. I'm a big fan.
Excellent. What about, despite being fans and with minimal or no spoilers, who might want to avoid Dungeon of the Mad Mage? What type of players or DMs might say this is not for them? Any criticisms?
Yeah, I do have some criticisms. Wizards of the Coast is continually trying to make... I'm going to call this sanding the rough edges off of D&D, which I understand why they're doing that, but it irks me. One of the things they did here was there's a mechanism which you and your players can ignore, but to prevent parties from wandering into areas that they're too low for, they would get killed. Where they would get killed. And again, that's fine. You can pick and choose, but also, I don't know, one of the key elements of Dungeons and Dragons to me is players losing, players learning to run away, players learning to recognize when an encounter is too challenging for them and making good decisions. And again, sometimes they don't do this, but I think it's one of the more... It's what makes it playing D&D different and better in some ways than playing a video game is, it's not so bounded by like programmed rules. So yeah. I didn't love that part, but it's a very minor part and you can ignore it. Also, if you're, again, I'm a pretty like freewheeling, improvising DM. I don't actually usually do a lot of graphing ahead of time, or a lot of I have very loose flowchart for how players will advance. So if you're like me, this may not be particularly useful for you, though I enjoyed this because it made me think about ways that I can improve and do things a little differently. But if you are an improviser, if perhaps you come from the theater tradition of Dungeons and Dragons, where, perhaps role-playing and innovative, interpersonal narrative is more important, this may not be as valuable a book for you.
Yeah.
It's again, good and bad, kind of limited on exposition and on plot and on background, but
and this is I think a criticism of just mega dungeons in general. Right. Not really. I mean, if you're going to make a mega dungeon adventure, there's not much you can do to get away from this. I find as a dungeon master and for my players, when I've run really long dungeons, players can get kind of dungeon fatigue, right? Tired of, seeing what's in the next room and checking a door and then, poking around and searching for traps and, it's another monster, right? They want to do something different, more plot related or their story. There's no real chance for that. So there is a plot in this.
There is, and there is an overarching story, and it's well done. It basically gives a framework. Here are the things that are happening in the dungeon, and here are the ways that your players will deal with or encounter them. But it is entirely possible that they will go sessions and sessions and sessions without like really doing anything to move the plot of the dungeon as a whole forward.
Yeah.
Which is, again, fine, and a lot of people get a lot out of this. And there are ways to create interesting social dynamics within a dungeon, and again, Dungeon of the Mad Mage has tried.
Players can have great role-playing experiences in dungeon crawling. We're not saying they can't.
But, if that's what you really, really like, I would prioritize this lower on your list of books to buy. Yes. But I do think anybody could get a lot out of this, and if you've got, some change burning a hole in your pocket and you want to pick up something new, I think it's definitely a good book, a lot of good ideas, magic items, monsters, a very cool setting. I'm really impressed with what Wizards have done. They've made me interested in Waterdeep, which I never was before. Yeah. So they've done a really good job with this and with Dragon Heist of building what I thought was a pretty boring D&D generic, market city into something that has a little character and a little bit of, something interesting to explore. So definitely.
Right. It would be nice. And, this is probably a great fan project if there was, because and no spoilers, but it says on the cover, players are in Waterdeep from 5th to up to 20th level.
Right.
By the time they're 20th level, players are among the powerful of the city, right? It would be great is if you wanted to make this a not exclusively dungeon crawling campaign, right? There are people who are going to be like, wow, these adventurers are really, the chosen ones. They're tackling the Hallcaster's Mad Dungeon, and they are now as powerful as any of the Mask Lords, and we're going to have to deal with them or use them or bring them into our plot.
There's definitely a lot of... I think this is absolutely most useful if you're going to modify it or use it in pieces. I can't imagine running just this dungeon 5th to 20th level. I think that would be a very unsatisfying and long campaign. But if you pick and choose and add things and maybe integrate it into a larger Waterdeep or Forgotten Realms campaign, that I think has a lot of potential.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So it's a good adventure.
It's a good adventure. I definitely recommend it. Very fun read. Very well written. Very interesting. Great design. Again, Matt and I have been talking about this. We've been very impressed with the freshman class of Wizards of the Coast and all the new ideas they've been bringing.
One of the things that I was just noticing, right, is reading through dungeon descriptions. A classic of this has been something, the black text, the box text.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
So, if you're a dungeon master and you've read any published adventures, often when you enter a room, a cavern, there's a little box of text for you to read, and it says, black ichor drips from the walls, smoke from a brazier,
coils at the ceiling.
Yes, 3 goblins lie in a makeshift pallet, and players are always like, "Okay, wait, I want to go look at this ichor," and like, "No, wait, I gotta finish reading this damn thing.
I gotta finish the thing. Let me finish reading before you
finish reading, right?" And basically, my experience is everyone tunes out when you read the black box text. They're much more engaged when you describe a room to them as they interact with it.
Right.
This book has no box text that I saw.
I think that it has done a better job of making the interaction with and descriptions of the dungeon more dynamic. Yeah.
So the box text is dead?
So I don't want to say this with absolute certainty, Matt, because I haven't seen what the actual physical copy looks like. So maybe it is organized differently, but it definitely seems like they have changed the fundamentals of describing it.
There's still descriptions of each room, but they're not they're written in a way that I would sort of write for my own notes.
So again, I believe this is correct.
Do we have we can pause and
I'm going to look
good example of
I believe this is correct.
I think this is really innovative beyond just the adventure.
Well, let me grab just like level 1. So teensy little spoilers if you do care, but Matt, I think you are right. It just describes there's no flavor text. There's no black box. So I guess
no bolded text.
No bolded text.
That's great. I think we should all try and get away from that in our published adventures.
And to be clear, there's more than enough descriptions about what the dungeon looks like. It's just not that level designer flexing their, freshman creative writing muscles.
Yeah, no, so it's really good, and the best way to describe any scene, whether it's a role-playing scene or an exploration of a dungeon room, right, is to let your players interact with it.
So yeah, strong recommendation. Let's take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about the other release, Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica.
Ravnica. Back to Dungeon Master of None. We're talking now about another new release from Wizards of the Coast, the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. It's a short sort of campaign guide, not a full campaign setting, a couple hundred pages.
Yeah, compare this, I think, to...
It's the same size as the Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron.
Yes.
Or the Sword Coast Adventure. It's smaller than the Sword Coast
Smaller
Adventures.
Sword Coast Adventures Guide. Larger, I think, than the Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron, but not by much.
So
and it contains
Ravnica.
basically the same things.
So let's talk about Ravnica.
An overview. Yeah,
it's got an overview of Ravnica.
Matt, tell us about Ravnica.
Well, okay, so Ravnica is a world that was created for Magic the Gathering. It was really innovative in that Ravnica took the 5 colors of Magic the Gathering, white, blue, black, green, and red, and from the interactions between those 5 colors, created 10 different pairings of 2-color relationships that you could then create sort of new types of cards. This has very little to do with Dungeons & Dragons, but it was an innovative thing in Magic the Gathering design.
Right, and it ended up being the setting for and the core of several sets, and I think is still pretty critical to the ongoing lore and setting of Magic the Gathering.
It is, and it's so critical that if you talk about a white-red deck, people still call it a Boros deck, because of one of the things in Ravnica is white and red magic together is one of the guilds. Guilds are an essential part of Ravnica. So the basic idea of Ravnica is as a giant ecumenopolis.
Ooh, good word.
Yeah.
I learned this word from the Stellaris release,
Yes.
but yeah, it's a world that is also a city. And
Coruscant, the whole city's a planet.
All city's a planet. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a giant planet city. Not much is really done with that.
Yeah.
I don't, from reading this book, I don't get how life on Ravnica is super different. But it's a whole
And it also
city.
seems like well, actually, it's explicit in the book, but also I think in the game that most of the action takes place in a pretty small part of, again, a city a planet-sized, plane-sized city.
So
again,
planes in Magic the Gathering, I think it's assumed they're just planets.
Planets. Anyway,
it's a magic word for planet.
It's a very large city, but most of the action takes place in a relatively circumscribed chunk.
So it's a planet city. That's the first thing that makes it unique. The second thing that makes it unique is the lore of this campaign setting is that long ago there was a giant war. Oh no.
A big war, yeah.
A big war, and people fought, but then they found peace by organizing into 10 different guilds. Again, based on these pairings of the 5 magic colors. And these 10 guilds rule different aspects of life in Ravnica. Sometimes in harmony, sometimes opposed to one another, sort of all trying to vie for power, but because they rule different aspects of life, it's hard to see why one would ever be able to take over.
It seems weird because like one of them is the government and one of them is the military and one of them is the garbage collectors. So like if that wins or loses, then you don't have you don't have a government anymore. I don't know. Again, like, I'm not like super clear on like what the end game is.
Imagine a civil war between the firefighters.
Right. It's like
and
so like if the fire
truck.
department wins, like do they become the police or they're just like no more police? I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyway, but don't worry, don't think about it too hard.
There's something called the Guild Pact, which so in the lore that I read, and again, I'm coming to this, I don't know much about Magic the Gathering lore. I just know what was given to me in this book. The lore is the Guild Pact used to be a law that like kept the guilds from taking over each other. And basically it's actually a powerful spell, the Guild Pact is, which is kind of cool, right? And anything you add to this spell becomes physical and like magical law. Like, if you add to the Guild Pact that you can't wear red hats, literally no one could put on a red hat, right? That's how the Guild Pact works. But in the lore, and I'm guessing this has something to do with the magic sets, the Guild Pact became a person. A guy named Jace Berylou.
Jace...
I remember he's a very powerful card from Magic.
Jace,
but he's also a character.
Mary Sue?
No. Oh.
Jace writer self-insert?
Yeah, he's a wizard who's cooler than everyone.
Yeah, he's just like the coolest dude around.
But
anyway.
he is also the living guild pack of Ravnica.
Right.
And I don't want to go out on a limb here, but if you're a world-building inclined dungeon master and you're like, you've made a whole campaign setting where one cool wizard is not only the coolest wizard in the world, but he also because he's the living guild pack now, anything that he says becomes like magical law that cannot be broken. Anyway,
I think the way that this works, like in the setting, is that he's not around much because he's a Plainswalker, so he's not actively.
He's just not here.
He's just not actively.
All right.
But again, Matt is correct that this is like why bother doing anything when Jace can just make it a law or make it illegal or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's talk about what's actually in the book. Enough about Ravnica.
So
we'll come back to it.
I have one other big overview thing, right? Which is, and I understand. So in the actual book, you're going to get a lot of cool stuff that we're going to get into. Some new races, some new classes, one new spell, a bunch of new magic items, and if you want to make characters in Ravnica, this has enough information. If you want to run a campaign in Ravnica, I'm not sure this is enough to get you going. We'll talk more about that.
Yeah.
But the one other thing that, again, I feel like is a missed opportunity, and maybe, Rob, you'll disagree, is so Ravnica is built on these 10 guilds, right? And based on Magic the Gathering, these all seem very natural, right? If you combine white and blue, you get the Azorius Senate, a guild that is responsible for laws and knowledge and things like that. They're led by a Sphinx. This makes sense from the Magic the Gathering point, because blue represents knowledge, white represents order. So if you combine them together, you'd get a guild, an organization that's obsessed with knowledge or achieving order through knowledge, right?
Right.
Nothing in this, so they've made the author's choice that the colors of magic, right, which are things that when you play Magic, people recognize, right? They're like, oh, that's a red goblin, right? They're all in the background.
Right.
So your player will never play this and be like, oh, I'm a black wizard, or I am a red sorcerer, right? All of the actual mechanics of Magic don't make it into the setting, which may be a good decision, maybe a bad one. We discussed this.
Oh, did we already? Well, no. I'm glad you're bringing this up, because we had this question, right? When they announced this, we were wondering if they were going to do something, and you're correct in that the way that Magic functions in Ravnica and in Magic the Gathering doesn't necessarily translate well or can be reflected in 5th edition, like fantasy and casting. And
it's tough.
And again, maybe that's for the best, but also wouldn't it be cool if there were rules for you cast a fireball? So you're a Boros Legion wizard and you can cast, I don't know, cure fireball or something like that. Like, I don't know. I like what
I was imagining something just even more simple, in that, like, there were feats or backgrounds or that were just like, I like, white magic, or I like green magic. And if you're a green wizard, it might give you, some druid cantrips or something like that. Now, they do have something similar to that in that if you're members of the guilds, but it never interacts with the colors. It just feels like a missed opportunity to actually make playing in a Magic the Gathering world seem a little like that without changing the game too much.
It wouldn't have to go far, but I guess it definitely seems like a missed opportunity to not do anything. You wouldn't have to go. Again, I think it would be cool to allow some unique magical combinations, but even just like feats or backgrounds or anything, something unique to reflect your guild affiliation or the ways.
Well, so you get a background to.
I'm sorry. No, that's correct. But I mean, something to reflect the way that Magic works in Magic the Gathering that isn't reflected in Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
Because also a thing about that is this is clearly designed to appeal to fans of Magic the Gathering.
Right. If you're gonna use Magic the Gathering, why not use it?
And they're gonna come and they're gonna be like, "Oh, great! I'm excited. I want to be part of the Boros Legion. I play a red-white deck." And then they're going to, I don't know, maybe possibly be disappointed when D&D doesn't really like allow them
mechanically
to do anything
to be red-white.
To be red-white, exactly.
Yeah.
But we're kind of getting off in the weeds.
Okay,
here.
we're getting off in the weeds.
Actually, we haven't talked about what's actually in the book yet, so we can circle back to this. But yeah.
So you get, let's talk about the guilds, right?
Okay, let's talk about the guilds.
You get really cool. If you wanted to create characters, and I feel like some of these guilds could be imported to another campaign. There's no reason why you can't have a Cult of Rakdos. It's a dumb name.
None of them are so bizarre that they don't like make sense. They all have
in a different campaign setting.
They all have unique philosophies and goals that are definitely transferable.
Right. And some of them overlap, right? Mm-hmm. So we talked about, it is weird in that some are like the lawyers of the world and some are the police, but some are, two of them are obsessed with technology, two of them are obsessed with nature and the natural world. So yeah, let's talk about the guilds. There are 10 guilds. In the book, there's basically a guide to making a guild character. There's a renown system, very similar to the one.
You'll remember the renown system from, possibly remember the renown system from Waterdeep Dragon Heist. Again, I think it's a pretty good system for affiliations and, sort of putting some numbers to associations with the group. It's good. Look into it.
Yeah, and then there are basically backgrounds for playing each of the guilds. Like, you're usually this alignment, what you're obsessed with. They give you different levels for each of the guild. And then if you're a spellcaster, and this is where the one bit where they tried to add in a little bit of things, is if you're a member of the guild, you get some bonus spells, regardless of your spellcasting class. So it's a chance to be a wizard, and if you join one of the nature guilds, you could get some druid spells.
Right. There's also, and again, they've made a bit of a nod toward magic by describing, your magic manifests a little differently if you're part of this guild. But again, that's just flavor text.
One thing I'm just realizing now is, I guess if you play a cleric, there's no gods in this campaign setting.
Yeah.
So basically, you're just getting your magic from, again, the 5 colors of magic from mana, but that's never described.
Sure.
So,
I don't know.
So this is a godless campaign, right? You can be a cleric, but there are no gods. There are angels. There are no gods.
Right.
I'm fine with that, but
it is worth noting, I suppose, that's unusual for a cleric.
Right. It should be noted because it's sort of baked into the class as soon as you worship a
paladin.
But you don't have to, right? I've had great characters who were clerics that didn't worship a god or refused the god's power, and that's fine.
Or are devoted to an ideal rather than. Yeah. Anyway, that's interesting.
So what are some of your favorites of these guilds?
So I'm a big Boros Legion fan.
Yeah. So describe to me the Boros Legion.
Well, the Boros Legion, they're the army, and the reason I like them is because I know how to make. So I do play some Magic. I don't own any cards. I just like to draft, and the only thing I know how to do is make rush decks. It's the only thing I know how to do is put a bunch of fast monsters together and put in the right proportion of land. And so the only decks I've really ever had any success with are usually some combination of white and red, often white-red. But yeah, the Boros Legion is neat. They're pretty straightforward angels and, warriors and, the fist of Ravnica. Pretty straightforward, but I'm attached to them because I have had some limited success with those decks.
And again, if you want to use this as an organization in a more fully fleshed out campaign world, it makes perfect sense. They're basically righteous bros crusading through.
Bros. They're very Deus Volting, yeah.
Yeah, and you can imagine like a barbarian paladin coming in to your town in your campaign setting, being representing the Boros Legion.
It's an extremely sense. Paladin of vengeance type organization. Mm-hmm. I'm also a fan of the Simic what are they? The Civic Combine? What are they
Yes, they're going to come up in a second when we talk about
that's right.
new races.
That's relevant.
But yeah, what's the Civic?
Civic is blue-green, and I've had some success with them. I like blue in general. Blue is one of my favorite Magic colors. And also these guys are fun because they're weird, scientist wizard people who create, as you will see, hybrids of sorts. Again, the weirder something is, the more I like it, and the Civic Combine is pretty fucking weird.
Civic Combine is interesting because traditionally in how Magic is set up, green and blue are opposed. Right? Green is about balance and harmony and in some ways stagnation. And blue is about progress and changing things. You combine those and talk about
it's a weird combo.
Changing nature for the better, but also respecting it. One that is kind of in opposition to the Simic League, that is one of my favorite, or the Simic Combine, is the Is It League.
Another fun one,
which
I like a lot.
Based on the colors blue and red, right? And they're basically mad scientist wizards.
Right.
So they're willing to go and try a more dangerous method of spellcasting.
They're definitely like a close third for me. I love these crazy weirdos.
All of the art has them having like these giant, basically containers of magical energy that they carry around, and there are rules for it. But it's a little more underwhelming than I expected. It's basically like, oh, you carry around this giant tank of magical energy, and it will sometimes cast an extra spell. So anyway, we're getting off the weeds. So there are 10 guilds. We haven't touched on all of them. They are actually, I would say that, they're basically almost everything in this book is related to them, right?
Right.
We're going to talk in a second about classes and
if you're hearing us talk about these clans and you're bored, this is definitely not the book for you.
Yeah.
Because almost everything in this book centers around, sorry, I said clans, I meant guilds, but around these guilds, because it really is about the guilds.
What you're getting, 80% of the book is a chapter for players creating characters who are part of the guilds, a chapter for dungeon masters on a little bit on how the guilds operate, though, again, to me, none of it makes sense from sort of a logical world-building perspective, and a chapter on a part of the city, you guessed it, dominated by the guilds.
Right.
Also, all of the monsters, and there's a lot of monsters in this book are tied to one of the 10 guilds.
So...
Also, the magic items.
So the one thing, again, we're sort of like losing like structure here, but it is worth mentioning.
I'm just babbling guild.
Worth mentioning that there's a really good bestiary for a book this size. It's more than you would think, and the magic items are pretty good. There's some really interesting ones, but there is a pretty rich bestiary, again, of mostly like Magic the Gathering type monsters,
and mostly high level.
But there are a couple of interesting ones, and there's also a place for where there's sort of like a randomized monster, I think, based on either the
it's from the Simic
or the Simic Combine,
right? So one of their things, right, as you can guess, is building new monsters, right? Blue and black together, or blue and green together.
So that's actually pretty neat, and so if you're interested at all, it's worth noting that you do get like a pretty good bestiary, a good list of NPCs, some new magic items, some of which are pretty neat. But most of this book is about guilds.
Right. If you don't like guilds, you're not going to like the book.
So we're not doing a good job of staying on topic. Let's talk about the races before we get into anything new.
Sure.
Because one of the things that is new, right, for players especially, are the races in this setting.
So and this is an interesting choice, right? We've often told you
and two new subclasses.
Two new subclasses.
They're not new. I'm sorry.
They're from an Unearthed Arcana.
They're officially released subclasses.
So we've often told our dungeon masters, if you want to cut something out, right? If you don't want elves in your campaign, right? Make sure your players know that, and then you can do that. This is the first Dungeons and Dragons thing I've seen that has not talked about all of the main races. I couldn't find it anywhere explicit, but there's introductory chapters for humans and elves, but any of the other races from the player's handbook are not mentioned at all, and there are no NPCs. So famously, dwarves were in like the alpha of Magic the Gathering, but haven't been around since.
Yeah.
And so rules is written, there are no dwarves in Ravnica.
Right. I think they sort of
There are
like
no halflings.
sidestepped the issue by just not mentioning them.
Right.
But it is not. Seems clear they don't exist.
If your character was and that was the other thing that there's no rules for being a planeswalker, which also
of course.
pisses me off. Right?
But why would there be?
Well,
you don't get to be a planeswalker, you fucking scrub.
Oh, excuse me for trying to tell a story about where my players are the cool heroes of the universe.
That was excuse you indeed. They are not.
I guess they'll be grubby little urchins living off the leavings of these all-powerful guilds.
They will, that's right.
And they'll never leave this wretched planet. All right,
And they'll be happy about it.
they'll love it. Planeswalking, that's not something you can do.
No.
What do you think, you're a hero? Anyway, so they're all the elves, but there are, let's see, 5 new races. Sorry, actually, I misspoke. They talked about humans, elves, and goblins. Because, of course, goblins are a classic of red decks.
That's right.
And things. But so there are some new races. The first is the centaur.
And again, so you've probably seen the rules for this that came out in the Unearthed Arcana. It's mostly changed. Though, players, I am sorry to report that the centaur is no longer a possibility. You cannot, as a
centaur.
Well, there used to be rules for if you were a centaur could allow a medium or smaller sized creature to mount them, and a centaur is a medium sized creature. So you could have a centaur, mount a centaur, mount a centaur, mount a centaur, until you had an infinite tower of centaurs.
Wow.
A centaur, if you will.
I see how that works. Yeah.
But they changed the rules so that you can no longer do that. So sorry, everyone, the centaur is dead.
Can other players in your party still mount you if you are a centaur character? Do they have rules for that?
I do not believe that they have any rules anymore for riding a centaur character, unfortunately.
So here's the thing, and I feel like we talked about this when it came out on the Unearthed Arcana, is that centaurs are a medium creature, horses are large. This bugs me. It shouldn't. It doesn't really matter. Like, player characters, so there's a reason, Dungeon Masters, you should know that player character races are almost always medium or small, right?
Yes.
If you change that size, things get wonky.
Yes.
If a player's an ogre, it's weird. It makes things hard.
So here's my crotchety opinion on this. People have been asking for a long time for monstrous races to be centaurs and things. And frankly, it doesn't make sense. The rules are weird. This is a bad compromise. Wizards should have had the courage to say, fuck you. No, if you want to be a centaur, make up your own rules for it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense.
Well, see, the thing that
it's a
doesn't make
medium-sized
sense
creature.
is
You can't ride it.
medium-sized.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I mean, if you're playing a centaur, you should be able to... People should be able to ride you. You should be bigger than everyone else. It should be awkward. And then one of the other compromises is it says... Equine build, any climb that requires hands and feet is especially difficult for you because of your equine legs. When you make such a climb, each foot of movement costs you 4 extra feet instead of normal 1 extra foot. So the compromise is like your centaur can climb a ladder. It just takes you a long time, which does not make sense.
Dumb. Your centaur cannot climb a ladder. I'm sorry. Right. A horse cannot go up a ladder. A centaur cannot go up a ladder. And the human part is not going to drag the centaur part up the horse part.
Well, so I wonder how bendy is the joints between the human and the horse body, because if it's really bendy, but then you basically got a disgusting word out of my nightmares instead of a beautiful upright centaur.
Also, like, I know we all know centaurs are very buff, but are they buff enough to overhand pull an entire horse ass?
Yeah, the ass is quite heavy. It's on a huge lever.
Most of a horse. I don't know. Anyway,
I've also wondered, how do centaurs sleep? Do they lie back on top of their horse body?
I like to imagine they sort of fold their arms and doze upright the way that
That seems really uncomfortable.
It does seem uncomfortable. Or maybe they lie like they kneel like horses do, and then put their I don't know.
Okay, and lay down on their
side.
I guess.
I don't know. Listen.
At least we're not talking about the location of the dick.
Right.
Is there a dick on the front with the man part, or a horse?
We all know where it is, Matt.
Do we?
Why even create a centaur? Nature or God?
Someone send Rob some deviant art really quickly.
Please do not. Enough talking about centaurs.
Okay, so centaurs are a new race. Honestly, if you're putting centaurs in your campaign, good for you. We encourage you. You have the approval of Rob and Matt to go balls to the centaur wall, make them large creatures. You're like, player wants to play a centaur? Fine. You can't go inside because you're a centaur.
Yeah.
You're large. You can't climb ladders. However, you're a cool centaur.
You're a cool centaur,
If you're going to be a centaur, at least make them a cool centaur. Right. Okay, so that's race number 1. What's our next new race?
The next race is the Loxodon, which is a funny way of saying elephant person.
Right.
These are elephant people.
Not like people with elephantitis.
This is not elephant man. It's an elephant man, but not the elephant man.
Right.
Anyway,
now,
so they're very large, of course, because they're elephants.
These have been around in Dungeons and Dragons for a while. I feel like they were in Plainscape as like a weird type of like.
This is not a Ravnica thing.
No, I think they're straight from Magic the Gathering as well. But they were earlier. There's only so many different types of monsters you can make, and eventually in Dungeons and Dragons, people have tried putting every
head on
jackal-headed.
Yeah.
Because I remember I had like a character in one of my Planescape campaigns that, or an NPC that had a giant elephant head person. Okay, so what do they do? What are?
Oh, sorry. So they're these are not particularly, I don't know, innovative. They have natural armor. They're tall. They're powerful build.
They have a trunk.
Which you can use to hold things, which is fun. And I think that's the only really unique thing about the Loxodon.
If this book is worth anything, it's the basics of the clearly written trunk rules. Which, if you ever had a character who's like, I want to be like the Monkey King,
sure,
or I want to be
I want an extra limb, I want a prehensile tail, I want to play Nightcrawler.
Trunk rules.
By the way, this is an argument in favor, another one in favor of D&D Beyond. If you want to, you can just purchase the races from Ravnica. You can pay, instead of buying the whole book, just spend $5 on the races. And if you like the races, if that's what you're excited about as a player or a DM, it's a perfectly good thing to do. All right, next race. Sorry, the Loxodons are actually pretty neat. They're cool. Their lore is fine, and they're interesting, and they've got enough to distinguish them. They seem like peaceful, lumbering giants. It would be fun to make a lot of different characters. They're just not, it's just another elephant head race guy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like compared to Minotaur,
which is the
next animal-headed race, people know what a Minotaur is. I feel like you're going to get better characters out of that just because of its history going back thousands and thousands of years. All right, the Minotaur is mostly unchanged from the Unearthed Arcana as well.
Mm-hmm. They made it's mostly the same. You have horns as a natural weapon. Strength and constitution increases. I like imposing presence. So this is, I don't remember if this was changed, but this is an improvement over previous editions. Because they're big and scary, they have a bonus, but it's not just a bonus to intimidation, right? It's also or persuasion, right?
Right. You get to choose one. If you don't want to be a scary Minotaur, you can be give me your money.
And I like this. I like this representation of both charisma and presence, and of because this is one of the more abstracted things in Dungeons and Dragons, and it's often players often have trouble being like, am I being intimidating? Am I being persuasive? Am I bluffing? Am I being deceptive? And I think that I think this is an interesting way to talk about. Yes, you can be large and powerful, but that doesn't mean the only way you can communicate is with violence. Yes. You can also use that to have a commanding presence in a way that is persuasive as well as intimidating.
One thing that changed from the Minotaur is they can now get lost. I believe before they had a special rule they couldn't get lost in mazes, which was kind of funny.
That is hilarious.
They took that away.
They also Goring Rush is now this is after you dash, you can make a melee attack. I think this was something else before, but now it's a bonus action, which is cool. It's neat. Actually, that's actually very cool. It gives players. There's not very many things you can do after a dash action. I could see this being pretty interesting on a rogue, to be honest. If you wanted to make a rogue minotaur, since they get. Oh wait, but never mind. Ignore me because that would be a bonus action to dash, and then you wouldn't get to use your bonus action to use your horns. Anyway, still would like Minotaur rogue. I think that'd be really cool, especially one that like was in mazes a lot. But yeah, so Minotaur, very cool, interesting.
There are two other races, and the next one is one of probably my favorite is the Simic hybrid. And as Rob talked about before, the Simic Combine is the guild that combines green and blue magic, nature, and experimentation, and you get characters that hybrid, basically hybrids begin their lives as adult humans, elves, or Veldikin, which is the last race we haven't talked about, and they are messed with, experimented on.
They sort of give them, they give them animal traits. So there's a couple of...
So the Simic hybrids begin life as an human or an elf, and they're experimented upon.
Right, and so the only base thing they have is dark vision, but everything else comes from these animal enhancements. And so you have options, and the options are sort of...
So this is how they work, is at first level, you get to pick basically like a tiny superpower, and then at 5th level, you get another one. This is super interesting because it's another level of choice in character creation.
Right. And that's different, I think. This is also the same as the Simic monsters that we have later in the book, in that it allows sort of a template with more choice than you have been given previously. So that's, I think, the very interesting thing about the Simic hybrid.
The first level options are all related to movement. One gives you sort of a flying glide speed. One option lets you climb. Yeah. Another lets you swim.
Again, pretty useful.
The 5th level ones are more offensive.
They are. You can get armor or an acid spit or, some nifty grappling appendages. Okay, nothing game-breaking, but unique and interesting for sure.
A lot of flavor on this one. This is, of all the races here, one that is really great to steal for your own campaign. If you want a player that's like, I'm a weird experiment that someone
definitely
made.
If somebody wants to come out of a vat, that's a great choice. The last race is the Vidalkin. I don't really have anything interesting to say about these. I guess maybe if you play Magic the Gathering, they mean something to you, but they just seem like boring elves.
They're blue elves.
Yeah. They have an incredibly...
They're very smart. Their lore is they're very smart and wise.
Yeah, they have an incredible power or racial trait in that they have advantage on all intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws, which is really powerful.
Considering they also have bonuses to intelligence and wisdom. And that if you're playing one, you're probably playing a cleric or a wizard, which means you also have proficiency in one of the good saving throws like wisdom. You're never going to fail these saves.
You will never be dominated. You'll never be commanded. It's, again, not like game breaking, but it is very powerful.
It is very powerful. I don't find them that interesting. So I think one of our tasks to our listeners is if you are a Ravnica fan or a otherwise Magic the Gathering fan, tell us why Ravnica is cool. We're pretty down on this book. Don't really recommend it.
It's fine. It's fine.
You're not going to get a campaign setting that I think if you don't know other things, you can run.
It's not for me. I can see the value in it. There are parts I like, but
if you love this, tell us why this is cool. Because I'm not completely getting it, and I do want to.
So we sort of like went off the rails on this. So if you have any questions about anything we didn't cover, there are two subclasses, the Order Domain for the Cleric and the Circle of Spores for the Druid.
Not a lot has changed since we talked about them in Unearthed Arcana, but they are official now.
They are official now, and I like both, but we already talked about them. But yeah, if you have any questions...
They're both great classes.
They're great classes. If you have any thoughts about this that we didn't cover, any comments, if you are a big Magic the Gathering fan and you have something that we missed, which we almost certainly did, please don't get mad. Just let us know. We'll cover it on the next podcast. But yeah, any final thoughts on Ravnica, Matt?
Other than it has some potential. I felt like if there's a larger product about Ravnica that explores what does it mean to live in a giant fantasy city, and then I guess my final point is this, Rob, is I felt like they've created and this is bigger than anything else we've talked about, is I feel like they've created a fairly static campaign world. There are 10 guilds all balancing each other, like, you know, compared to Eberron or Waterdeep, the entire campaign books we've been given about those, everything is filled with plot hooks of things that are going to turn everything topsy-turvy. Yeah. And there's none of that. There's hardly any people in this
You're
book.
definitely not
There's like 8 NPCs.
Yeah. You're definitely not going to overthrow a guild or even a Guildmaster. You're not going to kill any Plainswalkers. You're definitely not going to kill any gods because there aren't any. You know, you're not going to really, like, no matter how big your campaign gets, you're probably not going to do anything.
There's a guild pack that makes these 10 guilds here, and it's enshrined in a person who doesn't even live here most of the time.
Listen, in the grim darkness of the future, there's only war, but, you know, that gets boring after a while. And in the grim darkness of Ravnica, there's only guild war, and, you know, it's fine. It's
going to continue on forever.
It's
right?
It's great if that, you know, you need to try out new decks. It's not great if you're trying to, like, build a compelling narrative.
Right. It's a narrative made for a card game.
All right, so if you're mad at us, if you have thoughts, please write us at dmofnone@gmail.com or add us on Twitter at dmofnone. Thanks for listening, everybody, and keep rolling them dice.
So long.
Sensation.